So for a developer building early in this, you're trying things, you're going through a lot of that hard work. You have a rare opportunity to build on a new platform, a new operating system. That comes with a lot of challenges. When you ask kind of, is it worth it?
And that was Hoerl. Matt builds things that feels inevitable once they exist. He founded Beautiful Things in 2024, a studio crafting AI-native spatial experiences for the Apple Vision Pro. His visionOS app have been globally featured by Apple editors and selected as Best in Education and Best in Design. I was with him a few days after WWDC to gather his first impression of the event.
WWDC, it was packed loaded with visionOS announcements for visionOS 26. The biggest wow for me was spatial personas, the upgrade that you're seeing in the fidelity. Overnight, it is just absolutely bonkers.
We had a trip to the moon to experience Beautiful Things.
I have Beautiful Things, that's one of our apps that we've built on the platform, an index of 3D contents that you can discover, create, and play with the beautiful 3D objects. This is a vintage record player, and you can tell it's absolutely beautiful. Part of the reason we built Beautiful Things was to have spatial access to the incredible, beautiful things that you can either acquire or have any access to go and see in the real world.
We look at how they have implemented AI in their apps.
We were the first on visionOS to have a 3D generation pipeline for assets. We've also integrated, it was the first real-time voice integration on visionOS, where you could talk to the objects. Each object believably thinks it's itself. And so you start to talk to it and it's like, I'm talking to a car. That's weird.
And we cover a lot of ground and get a deep dive of what it means to develop for Vision Pro today. And I end up asking, what is, for him, the wish that Apple still has to fulfill?
Apple released the one thing that I wanted for, which was persistent objects in the space at all times. And they did that successfully. They checked that box. And so, what else I'd like to see from Apple?
But before we get into it, I wanted to remind you that if you don't have the time to watch the full interview and want to learn from other founders and creatives at the intersection between XR and AI, you should definitely check out the XR AI Spotlight newsletter. By subscribing, you will get weekly interviews like this directly in your inbox and access to a list of tools and apps that allow you to experience Gaussian Splatting in VR, on Quest, and Vision Pro. Just check the first link in the show description. Matt, it's a real pleasure to have you here.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, Matt, I want to get straight to the point. What was your most exciting announcement, right, for you at WWDC and why?
We're at WWDC right now, right after some of the announcements, and it was packed loaded with visionOS announcements for visionOS 26. For us, it's a major platform update. You're seeing incredible quality of life improvements across the board for end users and for developers. The biggest wow for me was spatial personas, the upgrade that you're seeing in the fidelity. Overnight, it is just absolutely bonkers of what they were able to achieve with that and what that unlocks, right? For in-person sharing with multi-devices, remote collaboration, it's really, really powerful. For, kind of end users, the scene restoration, you can have pinned objects around you. You can have these widgets now permanently in your space. That is huge. That was the number one thing people were asking us for. When I place something in my environment, if I put something on my desk and I put my headset back on, it's not on my desk anymore. People need that to feel real. So that was our number one request. Apple came through and delivered that. And there's just tons of different things they've added in there.
So I do have a question regarding those widgets in a sense. So are those, can anything become a widget? In the sense that the moment that you have an object, right? Usually when you, for example, we're going to talk more about Beautiful Things, right? But in general, when you get an object, you get it in your space, that is a volume, that stays somewhere. Is that something that can stay and be stuck to that place?
Yeah, great question. So there's a difference between the widgets. The widgets are very similar to how they exist on iOS or iPad, where they're like quick glance information you look at on your iPhone. You have the weather widget, right? It tells you the temperature. It's not the full app experience, but it gives you just a glance. You're able to bring that now on visionOS in a 2D sense with some depth. So these widgets, if you have something existing on an iOS platform or that's pre-built using the widget API. You can go in and instantly have that in visionOS. So I have my Chat GPT pinned to my wall next to my weather, next to my music. Now those have, like I said, a little bit of depth, but they're not the full app experience. You can't make those 3D yet. For us and for the apps we're building, if you're building a native app on visionOS, you can start to do that, use some of that similar technology of pinning in your environment, right? So having that persistence. And we're just starting to dig into that and looking into enabling that for beautiful things. And that's reasonable to expect that to exist here when the full version of visionOS 26 is released to the public in the fall. So it's really exciting stuff to be able to place something in your environment and it to stay there. And you can imagine where that goes all around the world, right? If you have a full persistent layer of every place you go, you start putting things in your coffee shop, on your drive to work, you can make your own billboards. Like, it's really cool. This device, you can taste the future of what's to come. And it's so close. We're still so early. And so manage some expectations, but it's a really powerful technology.
You brought up immediately something that is actually it's a bit of the next level, right? Because I mean, in a sense, we are kind of like struggling to still have something still stuck on my desk, right? Because that is the first step, in a sense, or a wall or whatever that might be. And now you're bringing, okay, but what if I am in a bar, I'm doing some work, and then I stuck something there? Now, I'm just curious, how do you see that happening at let's say a broader level when that becomes more of a shared experience?
Yeah. So if you think of it like, this goes back to some of the early thinking we were doing in mobile AR around this is once that exists, we'll all have our own layer of reality stacked over the world, right? And you can invite different people to it, right? So for now, what you're seeing on visionOS that's absolutely remarkable is you can place your widgets in your house. Now, if you came over to my house with your Vision headset and I invited you to a shared space, those widgets would still be private to me, just like on my iPhone. Those wouldn't be shared. It's reasonable to expect that inviting someone into your layer, you can start to see those things that you place, or making those things flagged public or private or something like that. And there's, it's not there yet, but you can see what at the ground level from what Apple is implementing, a path to get there. And that's really exciting. We're not there yet, and it's not going to be tomorrow, but the underlying technology of what you see with the widget kit and some of these things, that's a clear thread to what could be very, very soon.
No, absolutely. And I think there are other implications that arise, right, from, let's say, also moderation of something on a public space. I mean, you couldn't put an obscene poster in a public space. Now, I suppose that you also shouldn't be able to do that with digital content as well, right? So how does that act? And I think that there are also probably some other layers that needs to be figured out along the technology before that happens. But one thing that you said, though, is this idea of widgets stacking to around your place, your physical space. I think we have been thinking about it. When instead we look at the persona, that was truly shocking to me, because that's the moment that last year we have seen the codec avatar and everybody says, oh yeah, this is going to be so far. And also there were two things that struck me, in a sense that one is, first of all, it runs on a mobile device. Sure, it's a Vision Pro, probably the most powerful mobile device that we have, mobile headset that we have on right now. But on the other hand, there is also like, how easy is the process of scanning and capturing yourself? Because that's also not trivial. So I was expecting, oh yeah, before we get there, before we get something so realistic, we will probably need some scanning technology and some processing technology. And yesterday I did it, and it was incredible.
All of that, you can tell there's a lot of care on the Apple engineering team to be able to not only release something that works and looks great, right? That's one level of the puzzle, is making something really high fidelity that looks as close to reality as you can make it, but then making it easy to use and to scan. You're not going into a full volumetric capture booth and standing in the center with your hands up like a TSA scanner. You're walking in and taking your headset off, holding it in front of your face, listening to a delightful voice, and in 2 minutes you have a a representation of yourself that you're adding glasses to, you're customizing. It is remarkable how easy that process is, and is the benchmark for every other company to just ship the technology, but then to make it that easy to use. We hope to see that from other platforms, but man, Apple feels so far ahead that you can use this today. And if you haven't tried it, if you have a Vision Pro and want to do a spatial FaceTime, I encourage you to reach out to anyone. It's fantastic, and it is really powerful.
Matt, let's jump right in, I think. So we can also see maybe some beautiful things and we can show people how that whole experience feels like. And let's give it a shot.
All right, let's do it.
Matt, we are now here in the moon and we're going to see some beautiful things. But first, as we said, I think it's about how real these feel.
Yeah, and let's do a little high five here, and you can see there's some reactions, some sound. It feels like we're on the moon. We've made it. We're in space. But most importantly, that we're together in a shared space from across the world. That is really hard to achieve, and it feels like you're here with me. It's really wild.
And the other thing is that I think people often believe that if there is a body, then the level of presence it's increased. And the same thing with Meta and with their avatar. Oh yeah, we need legs. Why nobody has legs? I think honestly that's really much bullshit. I think that the level of presence of connection is not based on how complete a body is, but there are so many other layers and also how you interact. Now, we're going to see some object and see how that also feels. That's also part of the whole experience. But I think
I
we can maybe, let's say, see how we start interacting together.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I totally agree. We don't need legs to be in a shared space, and that proves the point of just having hands and a body here. So let's dive on in. I have beautiful things. That's one of our apps that we've built on the platform, an early experiment that we're using as a playground to try new things. Right, when Apple releases new APIs and new functionality for us as developers, we get to start to play with it. And so it is an index of 3D contents that you can discover, create, and play with the beautiful 3D objects, and we call them beautiful things. So I have a sandboxed experience here that we can do share play, and so we will dive in. I will share this with you, and we'll enter into a shared experience. And if you pulled the camera from our visionOS app, that share play sharing isn't going to be enabled for the individual assets, but we could do that from the web client. I can share a speaker.
Oh, let's do it.
This is a vintage record player, and you can tell it's absolutely beautiful. To find one of these in the vintage market would be quite the find. Part of the reason we built Beautiful Things was to have spatial access to the incredible, beautiful things that you can't either acquire or have any access to go and see in the real world. But now I can have this in my space at all times and put it on my desk really, really close to me. And
So I have two questions regarding this, right? So the first one is how do you make these 3D models? Are these made by 3D artists? Do you scan them? Or, I mean, how's that work?
Great question. So all of the assets or the base of our asset library is curated across the internet. So we go and source the best models that we can find that are beautiful, that meet our quality standards, and we kind of aggregate them together. So this was made by an incredible 3D artist, and all the credit is on the website. You can go and see and find the original creators. What's really important about one of the things we enabled early on was allowing users to create their own. I myself am a collector, and I have a lot of these weird things that I've collected throughout my life, and now I can easily scan them and bring them into visionOS in seconds using the iOS. We have a mobile capture device, so you can scan 3D objects, bring them into visionOS really, really easily, or you could generate a 3D object using 3D AI in seconds. So you could describe the object and it'll appear like magic right in front of you as well.
The other question was regarding the limits in terms of visual fidelity that you can achieve, right? So we're talking about material textures, file size, polygons. Can you give us some benchmark of what can be done right now and what you were able to achieve?
Yeah. So Apple has pretty clear guidelines of what they recommend. I will say at the beginning, we completely ignored those. We've seen models that were absolutely massive. We're talking hundreds of megabytes that you were able to load in a beautiful high fidelity, and it works. Apple can handle it. It puts the device through its paces. But for something like this, all of our assets have gone through a 3D production pipeline to be able to make them optimized for visionOS. So everything you see on Beautiful Things has gone through that. And
Do you maybe have another model, just
yeah,
so that we can check another example?
of course, give me one moment. I'd love to pull that up. And do you see this in front of you? And if so, what are you seeing?
Not yet. I think it's
Okay.
coming. Here it is. Yes, the Macintosh.
The Macintosh. Now, this is a beautiful representation of a classic Macintosh here. This is not the original, but one of the mid models. And it's absolutely beautiful. And so you can start to decorate your space with these things. But I don't know about for you, but I have an old Mac collection that increasingly needs to go in the basement. I can't have these out all around the house. Otherwise, I'd have them in my living room. And you can do that with this technology and not have your kids running and playing with it, or your wife saying, "Hey, get that old Mac out of the living room."
How do you dare? Anyway, the other questions. Still, you didn't answer my question. I have to say, like when we think about file sizes and
Yes.
polygons and textures, how much can you push this?
You can push the limits. We've done. There's one file that was 700 megabytes, and I'd say in the millions of tries, and that struggled. We optimized that down to 5 megabytes from there, and that looks incredible. But that was before we optimized it. We had this file that was a CAD file that we converted into USDZ. We brought it in, and it worked. And it shouldn't have, but we wanted to see what it would be like in its raw, state, and the platform was able to load it, and we were surprised by that. Certainly, you don't want to put that into public facing or do anything like that, but it's kind of like a PDF. You have some PDFs that are like gigabytes before they're optimized, or maybe someone hadn't set it up properly, and when you reduce that file down to a handful of megabytes, that's what the system would prefer. So you can really push what's possible here. Apple recommends a total scene limit, I believe, of under 100K, maybe a little bit higher, 150, and they do recommend a lot of processing work to make optimized models. And so we do that for the assets on the website. This is one example that it went through that process, and I'll send you the file after. You can take a look at it, the exact specs on it, but it looks beautiful and it looks real.
Matt, should we go back to our let's say in-person conversation?
Let's do it. I'll see you on the other side.
So, Matt, you have been working on Beautiful Things. You have been working also on other apps on Vision Pro. What is the hardest part of building for Vision Pro today?
That's a great question. So, you have a rare opportunity to build on a new platform, a new operating system. That comes with a lot of challenges, right? You are building with a technology that is evolving, and it's also in 3D. And so I'd say the creation of, making the jump from 2D to 3D is much more difficult than it was from, desktop to mobile. So you need a new skill set, right? And building
True, no,
really.
the only question, sorry, Matt, just to get, is there something that is, you would say, is Vision Pro specific? Because the challenge of moving from 2D to 3D is always be there, and maybe there isn't, right? Maybe you say, no, look, building from a Meta Quest or a Pico or a Vive or maybe the Spectacles, you encounter the same challenge. That would be a good answer and a valid one. But I was wondering if there is something that you have noticed specifically for Vision Pro.
Listen, it's a new, it's a high-end headset for early adopters. Distribution is a challenge. The audience isn't massive. It's not a Quest audience. There's not millions of users, and the users who can afford to go and buy a $3,500 computer are a little bit different than the Quest users. And so what you're seeing is kind of a smaller base to distribute your content into. And you're also, Quest had a many years head start to be able to build on it. So for visionOS, again, it was a new operating system. You were dealing with challenges and evolving APIs. Some of the integrations that we built for visionOS 1 broke in visionOS 2. We had to rebuild that, our SharePlay experience. And we built that again. And now you look at visionOS 26, and they released an API that makes it easy to integrate. So for a developer building early in this, you're trying things, you're going through a lot of that hard work. You hope that's improving the development ecosystem for everyone else, so that when more and more people come into this space, that they're not having those same challenges, and that Apple is doing a real good job listening and being able to improve those for future developers as they come in. And the goal is to get be able to dive in and build an app that is compelling, as easy as possible. And that's a challenge for Apple right now, and certainly on visionOS 1, that was quite a challenge.
So when we then think about, indeed, one of the biggest challenges is not necessarily for developing, but building apps and distributing them on a Visual Pro, is the size of the audience. How does that has worked out for you? Because I can imagine that there was a tremendous amount of work that went into beautiful things and some of the other experiences that you are building. So the question is, was it worth it?
Yeah. Again, if you take it from the lens of, you have this rare opportunity and moment in time to build on something new that is developing, that is evolving, you have the ability to go in and contribute and hopefully make a small dent or contribution that improves it for others, for in the future, right? You look at the history of computing, and those early adopters that came in and did things. You can really try to push the boundary and hopefully influence many more who come in later on. And so when you ask kind of, is it worth it? That's special. That's a really special thing to do. In terms of usage and the user base and that kind of thing, we're getting a lot of really, we have a really healthy user base compared to the rest of the Vision ecosystem. We were really lucky early on to have an app that resonated with people, and so with Beautiful Things, we're able to have a good percentage of Vision Pro owners who have the app. We get to try new things and learn in real time. The lessons and the data produced has been really insightful for us, and so we're happy with where we're at, and it's going to inform all of the future apps that we build beyond Beautiful Things and all of our work on visionOS. So we're laser focused here on the platform. We believe that it's not going anywhere, and there's continued investment from Apple, and it's a lot of fun to be able to go in, try things, break things, and hopefully do some things for the first time. We did that a few times with Beautiful Things. It started as a simple index of 3D objects, of just curated assets, and really quickly we updated that to starting to prototype a vision of the future where everything can think, where everything has intelligence, where everything around you will be able to start to talk to you and talk to each other. And this device is really the only device you can prototype that vision on today and see how it feels. And so to us, that's a really fun place to explore. In 5 years, assets are going to be able to be generated on the fly. All of them, or many of them, will have intelligent properties. There's still going to be the craft of creation and 3D modeling and that, but the arc of technology is going incredibly fast. So we wanted to start to feel what that's like today, and so in terms of assigning worth to that, for us, it's definitely worth it.
No, absolutely, and I think so. I didn't necessarily hint at a monetary value, right? So I think that the worth to someone can be different scales, because I think that there is also a huge opportunity of showing the capabilities of you as a team, as a developer, by building apps for this device, and use that as what is a pretty, in very basic term, marketing capabilities that you can share to attract potential other businesses for other sort of activities that you might will. So, but put the money aside, there is all this value. that and all these experience and novelties that otherwise you could get a 9 to 5 job at a company and be a developer there, and maybe that's also for someone, but maybe not for everyone as well, right? So I think value can be and should be measured in different way. I want to discuss a little bit because you have mentioned at intelligence or generated, so we know where that was going. And I know that recently I've jumped back also in beautiful things that there is a whole AI layer now that's been added to the app. Maybe can you explain how that works and what can you do with it now?
Yeah, absolutely. And we were the first on visionOS to have a 3D generation pipeline for assets. So you could, really early on, going back to last, I think, March or April, we put a web-based client where you could generate a 3D asset and pull it in seconds. We then prototyped with procedurally generated nature, so trees and other species that you can instantly generate around you. And then we built all of that into the app. So for us, it's how can we get users to create, be able to create anything they want to create in a delightful way as quickly as possible. And so 3D AI has been a great tool that's increased the fidelity, certainly since we launched our first version to now. If you try it today, you can generate anything you can think of in seconds, and it looks compelling. It looks really, really great. That to us was a key early addition for that. And we've also integrated, it was the first real-time voice integration on visionOS, where you could talk to the objects. And if you think of it on a high level, you want to discover, create, and learn from these things. And a lot of times you'll pull out something really interesting and be like, what is this? I can read a text description that's interesting, but as soon as it starts talking to you, and you can engage with the material in a new way, that is it's absolutely remarkable. So every asset is attached to a frontier model that you can communicate with in real time.
So I have a gazillion questions. So
Let's
first of all, when you mentioned about you, he talks to you. What we're talking about is like I had a Fiat Abarth in front of me, and I was like, okay, tell me when was this made? So that's what I did. I asked a question and automatically, and it gave me context about who made
go.
it, for what occasion was made, and then I found it fascinating because that is really something that this medium should do. How does that work? How are the information, let's say, taught to the AI? Is that picked from the internet? Is that something that you feed to it?
That's a great question. So every asset, as I mentioned, was hand curated, and so that also includes context on that. Now we have a pipeline to be able to generate that content about the object, but we have really good data. It starts with the data. What data you're starting with, and for many objects, we have pretty. It comes from. Some of these are from museums. Some of them are from have a pretty rich history about the object. So we pull that information in. And for each object, they have a specific set of information that's provided to the LLM to be able to produce an intelligent-like conversation about itself. Now, you can get in there and start to find the edges of each, but each object believably thinks it's itself, and it has a level of, when you talk to that Fiat. An awesome car, it thinks it's itself. And so you start to talk to it and it's like, I'm talking to a car. That's weird. But what's really awesome and weird is you put a designer chair from industrial design history next to it, right? Some Mark Newsom chair that thinks it's itself. And now you have a chair talking to a car and you're like interviewing it. And so you're learning about these things. These things are learning about each other. You could just be a fly on the wall and watch that conversation unfold, right? They'll start to dive into subjects that are like, the material of the Fiat. It might be similar to the materials that were created for this chair. They go into those subjects. You can just watch that happen. And that led to, as soon as that happened, that spawned an idea for another app that we created called Talking Heads of, inevitably you're going to have not only objects, but character representations of not only historical figures but everyone. It's not unreasonable to think in the future that I've put enough data on the internet that I could be recreated from photographs, and This podcast recording can take my voice sample and reasonably recreate a version of Matt in the future without my permission. And those things are going to start to happen. They're going to be things as a society that we're going to have to talk about and figure out, hey, what are the boundaries of what's possible? But there's also that opportunity for, if you've lost a loved one, to talk to someone that you miss dearly. And those are things that are a weird future that we're entering into now.
I agree. And that is like a whole philosophical conversation that I hope I'm going to be able to have also with someone that is also building those kind of products, because I know that there are already, like, I mean, there are already companies that are, let's say, storing memories, photos to recreate this, let's say, alter ego. The implication, everybody thinks that they want to keep talking with the deads. I'm not sure that that's the way we go about it, because there is a lot of questions. One question though is that with all this talking, now I'm sorry, I'm going back a bit to the ground here. It's like, who's paying for it? In a sense, like all these conversations that are happening within object, within heads, is that something that is paid by a subscription, or maybe something that you are offering differently?
Yeah. So, really for any of these types of applications to be successful, the cost needs to be zero. It needs to be on device. They need to be local. You look at what Apple announced in visionOS 26. I know they get a lot of heat, or not just 26, but in all their software is their free on device intelligence. That's going to enable an incredible suite of apps and opportunities. Today, to get the frontier models, it does cost money. For us to use the voice API, it does cost money. We provide a set of requests per users. There's 25 requests that users can do without getting charged. We have a subscription plan for those who really want to do that for a longer period of time. That's also for the 3D object generation. To use frontier technologies, it costs today, but we want to be able to provide that to users today. And in the future, we believe those costs are going to come down to zero in some cases, certainly with audio and real-time voice. And we're looking at ways to be able to run our own and provide that in the next year at no cost. So, we need to give people that taste, and we don't want to paywall that up front. And if people are they want to support the work that we're doing, please consider a subscription for that as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. I just wanted to make that clear, because I think it's an important part, an important feature at the bleeding edge of technology, and it comes with a cost for everybody. So it's just obvious. I do have some more like high level questions, but before moving into that, there is a very, I wouldn't say hot topics, but in general, something that people are actively experimenting with. Because when you are in beautiful things, you have objects that are created usually by, of course, very talented 3D artists. Mm-hmm. Now, when we go about capturing reality, Gaussian Splatting is being, let's say, used by more and more people. There are more and more apps. When are we going to get Gaussian Splatting in beautiful things?
That's a great question. Certainly, we've looked into it, and a huge fan of that technology. Now, for a lot of this, I think that is a front that you see a lot of people playing in and going for it, and building businesses around that and making that kind of like the thing. For us, it's we've explored pulling that in, certainly on the web, and now I believe there's some open source tooling that we can pull in that will make that a little bit easier for us. But if you look at what Apple's doing, and you look very, very closely, if you saw what they did with spatial scenes, right? They had spatial photos, and now they have spatial scenes. That word alone is powerful. And if you think that's the direction they're going, I'd love to see Apple integrate that very, very tightly within their systems and their technologies, so that when I use my iPhone or use my phone and I take pictures or videos, and say I go to my childhood home, in a second, I could recreate that environment around me. I could go into that, and I could make that my home space. Instead of the moon, instead of anything else, my spatial scene becomes my home screen. And you can see that path that if you look closely, I believe that's a direction that I think is really compelling for us. We're we're interested in objects and things, and we'll pull that in to get the highest fidelity objects on the platform. But in terms of environments and things like that, that's not something we're going to be pulling into at this point.
No, no, absolutely. But I'm asking especially to you because the focus is things, and Gaussian Splatting is pretty good at scanning things and much less good at scanning environments.
Yep.
I think so. That's why it makes sense. But again, I mean, I think you brought up a good point. Maybe it's not gonna take longer before you can actually scan them with your phone, right? And then get that information into as 3D data that can be then imported and go anywhere. A question is, currently you don't support upload of object from people, right? So if, let's say, I have a beautiful object that I've made, how can I put it into beautiful things?
That is something, we've done a lot that we should probably push that side a little bit more. You can upload on the web. You can't upload in the app. So we have that available on mobile and web. You're able to upload your own content there. One of the barriers to entry is the file format that's supported. So we asking even someone who's familiar with 3D to export a model into USDZ format or convert that it's not something that a lot of people instinctively know how to do and do that really, really easily. So we have that for power users who, like yourself, you've probably got some things that you would like to upload. We have a mobile app that's going to have a pretty big update in the fall with the new version of iOS that you are able to, if you have those in your Files app or on your devices, you can bring those into beautiful things and view them. And part of that is so you have a collection of things that you really things that matter to you. You have a place for them to access them, to share them with others, and then to be able to easily put them around you in your space. And so now we're with object persistence, you can start to like I mentioned in our spatial FaceTime, you can take a classic vintage piece of technology that you might it might take up a little too much space in your physical desk or your physical office or wherever, and you could display that virtually. And so bringing those things from your collection or from your personal life into the digital space and be able to have that there as an accurate representation. Beautiful Things enables that, and you'll see an update to make that a little bit easier here to come. But we don't, the file formats that are supported are limited to this point.
So there is more of a personal question I have here. I'm sorry, because so with so many layers to Beautiful Things, right? I mean, we just covered a few things, but there is more. There is this sandbox that people can play with. This is a shared experience. You can import your own assets. You can view them from the web. You can talk to these things. They can talk to each other. So there is a lot going on. How do you help people actually discover this and keep them updated and let them know? Because honestly, I didn't know that you could upload. And I'm not saying that it's your fault, right? I mean,
Oh, it
you
is.
cannot
It is.
even put...
It certainly is. And it's something that, listen, we build and we put out for the users who really care about this. You think of the visionOS community right now. It's a very passionate, very niche community, people who love to dive in and try things. And we try to reach those people through kind of the channels we're able to do. In terms of some of the I'll say footnote features, those things are things that we want to make sure that they're really, really great experience. And right now you can do that in a limited capacity, but once they're ready for a lot of people to use and they're, very easy to use, we'll go out and push those a little bit more. So now it's mainly a comfort thing. And I think the upload tool has some room to get a little bit better. It's frustrating to have, to be able to create that USDZ model and then upload it. Most people don't know how to do that. And so before we go and get that out there into a lot more users, we want to make sure people are able to do it. And you'll see some updates on that here soon.
Okay. That does make a lot of sense. I mean, you maybe don't want everybody to know everything because, again, there are still kinks that needs to be ironed out. Then it's a fair point.
We're experimenting and breaking things along the way, to build a really, a high-end, great experience across all of these things that we're trying to do. It's a lot to take on. And so the key things that are really great experience in the app are being able to discover, kind of create and play with these 3D objects. And on the creation side, the AI generation of objects is more compelling for more users to be able to create on the fly rather than to go to your files and find the objects and those types of things. And so we've seen that resonate a lot more with people than the upload side. But it's early days, and this is a fun place to play in.
Absolutely. And so I was curious then, if we move away at your, let's say, how your experience has been building beautiful things, building talking heads. What are some advices that you could give to developers that are maybe, I think that there are different type of people. So there are people that may be still hesitant. It's like, okay, should I go there? Should I start with it? And then there are the people that are instead already on the platform, right? So maybe for these two groups, what would you say could you say to help people that are still undecided on that?
Yeah, for those who haven't started building on visionOS, or maybe like, I got this idea I want to go and try, um, dive on in. I think the biggest thing is just to build whatever it is, wherever you build, just like start and finish a project. We organized one of the largest visionOS hackathons called Vision Hack last fall in 2024. And we asked ourselves the same questions of how do we get people who've never built in this technology to be able to build something compelling in 48 hours. And we try to communicate three things. Come up with something really, really simple, like stay focused, a simple idea with a clear purpose. And then reduce all of those requirements as much as possible just to get something working. If you're, build like a calculator or a simple like a widget or a pinball machine or something really, really small, that can have a profound effect. You look at apps like one of the ping pong apps. It's a really simple concept, but there's a lot of technical challenges with just putting a ping pong table in for a multi-user experience. So start small as possible. If you can just start with 2D, that's probably the best way just to eliminate 3D from it. You can build great 2D apps. Some of the most popular apps are for viewing immersive content. Apple's made that a little bit easier. So start small and build incrementally. There's a lot of open source templates. Apple has great sample codes. We've released some open source projects. A lot of developers in the space are releasing these experiences, code samples as well for you to build from. For developers who are in the ecosystem, you're starting to see. Go for it.
Just a question, because you mentioned people have been releasing a lot of this code, open source and resources. Where could people go if there is like one or two places that you could mention when you can type and go? Where can they find them?
Great. One I'd recommend is as Joseph Simpson is doing incredible things. He's aggregating a lot of this. I think Tom from France, he has a list as well on GitHub. I'll send those. And we've released a Beautiful Things open source template. We did that early on of Beautiful Things 1.0. We just open sourced it. We'll probably do that with 2.0 as well, and allowed people to come in, learn from the mistakes we've made, and also get up and running on a template pretty quick. Also, I mentioned Apple. Their sample projects, we're looking to those too for clues on how they build internally. Those are great resources. Those are available at Apple developer resources as well. So give that a go. And those are some resources. I'm happy to provide the links, and you can link to them after.
Absolutely. You will find them in the description below. And sorry, I interrupt. You were mentioning them for people that are already in. What advice can you give them to accelerate or get the most out of this effort, or let's say be faster, more efficient, or more successful?
Listen, I think we're learning from the community as well. I'm certainly learning every day from the incredible builders in this space. And so if you're building in this space, thank you. It's really awesome to build alongside you here. And for, one of the things is persistence and staying with it. There's a lot of platforms to build for. There's a lot of choice out there. You see, a lot of platforms are trying to convince developers to come and build. If you're building on visionOS, that's awesome today. And you're going to see a lot more people enter. If you're, struggling with publishing an app or really anything to keep going, this is a team sport at this point. To have one person that does everything not only has a great idea for an app, but can see it through in a great design, and then technically on the 3D side pull it off. It's very rare that an individual can do that. So reach out to collaborators. You see a lot of the great apps on the platform. Some of the ones that are coming out from brands are an aggregation of some of the greatest developers in the platform. But you're starting to see solo devs and 3D technical artists come in that are doing some really cool things with procedural generation or procedural animation, things like that the device can do, but it's not really explored. So if you're if that's sounds like you and what you're interested in, this is a cool platform to play on.
So then the other questions, and I want to kind of like maybe close up this conversation, is like, so Apple has been pushing continuously, let's say, update, and is now with visionOS 26, it's making more capabilities available to developers, to creators. Now, if there is one capability that you would want Apple to release tomorrow, what would that be?
Listen, Apple released the one thing that I wanted for, which was persistent objects in the space at all times, and they did that successfully.
Check.
They checked that box, and so what else I'd like to see from Apple? For us, the biggest thing is a more accessible device, right? Something that is, I call it the Daft Punk, the lighter, faster, better, cheaper. You want that device that more people can have access to spatial personas, to the experiences that we're building, but mainly a device that you can get in and enjoy. If that price point comes down, it to a level, not quite close to the Quest, but even if it comes down a little bit, it's a profound experience that most people just don't have access to today. And so that's the main blocker that we'd like to see next, we're really excited about the potential of that. And so in terms of we'd love to see some camera access that can be used outside of enterprise and things like that. Apple's taking a real cautious approach, which, if you think of the data that's collected from these cameras, that's a sound approach. It's very contrasting to Android XR, which has, we're just going to do it. And it's good to have a balance in the field, and but we'll see how Apple continues to roll that out.
There is, you just said something, right? And I wonder, because of course the device, it is a beast in many different ways. So do you see that some of the things that are built now on Apple Vision Pro, it's something that could be used, reused, or developed or adapted to what is going to be very likely the next generation of much lighter device? And I'm not talking about a Vision non-Pro. I'm not talking about something lighter, a bit cheaper. I'm not talking about the first integration of AR glasses, because they are likely going to come, right? So do you see that value of building now for Vision Pro as a capability to then move on what's going to be this future of wearables by Apple?
Yeah, and across the ecosystem. So if you think of, if you look at some of the things that have been teased, Android XR isn't widely available. Outside, it's not available. You look at the what Meta has done, that they released their prototype and they announced it in a big way. I don't have access to it. I can't go and get and build on it. But what I can do today is go to visionOS and build something that can translate across all of these other platforms over time. Once they get released, you could do that today. And so it really is building on a future technology today, prototyping ideas of the future and hammering them out and refining them over time. You look at the first iPhone apps, they're not the apps we're using today, but some of those seeds turn into the next apps, the next great apps. And so if you go in and you start building and learning this technology now, you can do that on visionOS. And hopefully pretty soon you can see that on Android XR and build some quality experiences on the higher capability Meta devices as they come out.
Matt, thank you very much for your thoughts. Thank you very much for sharing about what you're working on and beautiful things and your vision on the Vision Pro and the new update for visionOS. It was a real pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for listening in. If you like the show, remember to leave a rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or a thumbs up on YouTube. It really helps me keep doing this and shine the spotlights on the greatest founders and makers, pushing the boundaries of XR and AI. Also, make sure to check out the show page xraispotlight.com, where you can find more conversation like this one. Till next time.